In the heart of an ancient forest, whose end no one knew, lay a knight clad in rusted armor. Beside him rested a sword, mottled and dull, its blade long since stripped of its shine like a relic forgotten by time. He lay still among roots and moss, untouched for what felt like 1,000 years, as wind and frost buried his name, his memories, and his fate. No one knew where he came from, or why he slumbered here. Until one night, a whisper echoed through the depths of the forest. Faint as the wind, it pierced the leaves and slipped into dreams, a soft calling from another world. Elwyn. The voice was gentle and slow, like a spell or the start of some ancient rite. He opened his eyes. Light filtered through the leaves, scattered and still. Slowly, he sat up, gazing at this world, both familiar and strange. He didn't know who he was, remembered nothing of his past, and had no reason for his awakening. Only the voice remained, echoing in his ears, soft and persistent, calling that name. Elwyn. He tried to answer, but no sound came. His memory was blank as snow, and his chest felt bound by some cold force. The sword, he could not grip it. The name, he could not claim it. Looking skyward, he saw the light falling between the leaves like slivers of time. He stood, his armor clinking faintly as if answering a distant bow. He did not know where to go, only that he had to leave. The voice was calling, and beyond that voice, something lost waited for him. So the knight took his first step out of slumber. The leaves rustled beneath his feet as though fate had just turned its first page. On the day the lost knight awoke, the wind whispered through the trees as if the world was quietly turning a page of destiny. He walked eastward, with no map, no purpose, only the faint whisper guiding him, like an unseen thread pulling at his soul. At first, the journey wound through forests and streams. Dew quenched his thirst, mountain fish filled his hunger. He slept by the fire each night, dreaming colorless, shapeless dreams. Days and nights blurred, spring and fall passed as if in mere days. But in that quiet march, he began to sense something strange. Beasts of the forest crouched low or fled at his approach. Snakes and insects lay still, as if afraid of some deep, unknowable aura. Even when he tried to draw near, they silently slipped away without a sound. He began to understand the world was avoiding him, as though he did not belong here. Perhaps he never did. With each step forward, the solitude deepened. It was no longer just loneliness. It was a solitude rejected by all nature. He felt wrapped in a transparent curse, untouchable and cut off from the world. Mists began to rise at dawn, veiling the distant peaks. Trees shed their leaves, and snow began to fall, plunging the land into stillness. Time blurred. He no longer kept track. Cold clung to him like a shadow, and even fire could not warm his fingertips. One evening, in a storm of wind and snow, he found shelter in a cave. Lighting a fire, he knelt by its flickering light, staring at the flame as though it were the last warmth in the world. His shadow danced on the cave wall, faint and fractured, like a man slowly fading from existence. That night, he heard the voice again. Elwyn. His eyes flew open, tears already trailing down his cheeks. He cried without knowing why, and that inexplicable grief became its own reason. Looking up at the cave's roof, the voice echoed again like a forgotten prayer. Elwyn, he whispered back, voice trembling like the firelight. Who are you? Why do you call me? Why must I endure this nameless pain? If I am a sinner, let me end it. If I am a sacrifice, let me face my fate. The wind snuffed out the flame, leaving him in the ashes like a statue about to be swallowed by time. There was no answer, only the whisper fading into the storm. He closed his eyes and fell into another dreamless night. At dawn, the snow had eased. The knight stepped out of the cave, wearing the last breath of night. He looked to the east, where a pale sun was rising over the ridge like a stubborn flame in the cold wind. He straightened his armor and continued his endless journey. The wind and snow came and went. He crossed barren plains and frozen lakes, black forests and hollow valleys. The world stayed silent, leaving no footprints behind. His shadow stretched across the snow, then vanished into the distant mountains like a fading line of light. He didn't know how long he had walked. Months, a year, perhaps longer. He only remembered that since that snowy night, the whispering voice had slowly fallen silent. At first, he still spoke into the wind, casting his questions and sorrows into the void, even if no reply ever came. It was warmer than silence. But now, even that voice was gone. The world around him was utterly quiet. No birds, no beasts, no dreams. He began to feel something deeper, a severing, as though his bond to this earth was being stripped away by some unseen force. He was living through an endless winter, and he, perhaps, was its final snowflake. One day, standing in the snow, he saw a flock of crows fly across the sky, their shadows dark as ink. In that moment, he realized he was not wandering. He was being led toward a mountain, a place, or a fate. He pressed on, without words, without prayer. The mist thickened. In the air lingered a scent he remembered. He knew the voice would return, and he would face it one final time. This journey had never been about seeking. It had always been about arriving. Mount Morrow, its peak eternally draped in snow, wine swirling like a morning hymn. There, the knight Elwyn stood alone on the cliff's edge. His armor was worn by storms, his sword cold to the touch. He had walked for countless days. The whisper was gone, and solitude clung to him like a shadow. But tonight, within the mist, the voice returned. Elwyn! He turned. Sword drawn, he stepped into the mountain fog. A woman stood there still amid the snow. Crows circled her in silence, and thorned vines crept at her feet. Her crown was woven of dead leaves and dry vines, its blood-red petals quivering in the wind. She had once been the goddess of the forest. Now, she looked more like a banished wraith. She met his gaze calm, without joy or sorrow, like still water. "It was you calling me?" Elwyn asked, coldly. "I only called you home. You cursed me with your voice, lured me with solitude, trapped me in dreams." His voice trembled with anger. "You made me live like less than a man, closer to death than life." The woman said nothing. She slowly closed her eyes, as if yielding to fate. He raised his sword. "You didn't awaken me. You awakened the curse itself." Steel cleaved through black mist. Crows scattered. A storm broke loose. She fell in the snow, her crown shattering on the ice. Blood seeped into the rock, but made no sound. Then, a single mote of light rose from the snow, falling gently into his hand. It was a memory, shattered, blurred, but painfully familiar. Beneath spring blossoms, she crowned him with her first wreath. In the mist of a stormy night, she shielded him from divine wrath. She had once been a chosen spirit of light, then fell into shadow for him. She had waited only for him to awaken so he could end it and become human once more. Her name never spoken, now echoed softly in his heart. CASSINA. Her sacrifice had been a love running against fate. He knelt in the snow, tears falling without cause. But the wind did not answer. Since then, no one has climbed Mount Morrow. They say on snowy nights, a faint figure appears at the summit. She stands in the wind, crown and ruin, surrounded by crows. She never speaks, only gazes into the distance, whispering a name the world has long forgotten.